Maya Brooks stared out the window of the Coalition cruiser UCS Valiant at the stars beyond. 3 months ago, she had been just another cadet at the Earth Military Academy. Now she was floating in deep space, part of the first mixed crew of humans and aliens ever assembled for combat. The bridge buzzed with activity around her. Commander Cale Thorne, her human superior, worked at his station while tall reptilian Saurak warriors discussed battle plans with the crystalline Veltar advisors. Their voices created a strange mix of sounds that Maya was still getting used to. Cadet Brooks, report to Briefing Room 3, came the announcement over the ship's speakers. Maya straightened her uniform and walked through the corridors, passing crew members of different species. Some nodded at her respectfully. Others simply ignored her, which was fine by Maya. The briefing room was packed when she arrived. Vice Admiral Zenthar, a massive Saurak with dark green scales, stood at the front of the room. His yellow eyes scanned the assembled officers as holographic displays showed star maps behind him. "The situation has become critical," Zenthar announced in his deep, rumbling voice. "The hegemony of Zeph has positioned their forces to attack Kepler 442b. 3 million civilians live on that world. We cannot allow them to fall." Maya knew about the hegemony. They were a military empire that had been conquering neutral worlds for years. Their armies were strong, their weapons advanced, and their tactics brutal. The coalition had been formed specifically to stop them. Intelligence reports indicate their main stronghold is Fortress Arcturus, continued the Vice Admiral. A new hologram appeared, showing a massive space station orbiting a small moon. "This installation guards all hyperspace routes to Kepler 442b. Our fleet cannot reach the civilian world while this fortress remains operational." Commander Thorne raised his hand. "What are our attack options, sir?" "Limited," replied Zenthar. "The fortress has energy shields, a large fleet of warships, and approximately 50,000 defenders. A direct assault would cost us thousands of lives and might still fail." Maya studied the holographic fortress carefully. It was huge, with multiple levels and defensive positions. She noticed something interesting about its design, but kept quiet. Junior cadets did not interrupt high-ranking officers during briefings. "We need more information before we can plan an effective attack," said Veltar's strategic advisor Quillen, her crystal body reflecting the room's lights. "A reconnaissance mission is required." Vice Admiral Zenthar nodded. "Agreed. Commander Thorne, select a small team for intelligence gathering. The mission parameters are simple. Observe the fortress, record defensive capabilities, and return with data. Under no circumstances should the team engage enemy forces or attempt infiltration." Maya felt her heart skip a beat when Commander Thorne looked directly at her. "Cadet Brooks will lead the reconnaissance team. She has shown excellent tactical awareness during our previous operations." Several alien officers turned to stare at Maya. She was young, only 22, and had less combat experience than most people in the room. But she had impressed everyone during their recent missions by solving problems in ways that others had not thought of. "Sir, with respect, perhaps a more experienced officer should lead this mission," suggested Captain Vextor, a Saurak military veteran. "Cadet Brooks has consistently demonstrated creative thinking," Commander Thorne replied firmly. "Her human perspective has proven valuable in past operations. The reconnaissance mission requires careful observation, not heavy combat experience." Maya stood up. "Thank you, sir. I accept the assignment." Vice Admiral Zenthar studied her with his yellow eyes. "Your team will consist of Lieutenant Jake Morrison for demolitions expertise, Corporal Lisa Chang for communications, and 2 of our alien specialists. You will use a stealth shuttle to approach the fortress undetected." "Understood. Sir, when do we depart?" "In 6 hours. Remember, Cadet Brooks, your mission is strictly observation. Do not take unnecessary risks. We need you to return with information, not become heroes." Maya nodded, but something in the Vice Admiral's tone suggested he knew humans had a tendency toward risky behavior. She had heard other species describe humans as unpredictable and prone to dangerous improvisation. After the briefing, Maya found her team members in the ship's mess hall. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was a stocky man from Texas, with an easy smile and expert knowledge of explosives. Corporal Lisa Chang was quiet and serious, known throughout the ship for her ability to crack enemy communication codes. "So we're going to spy on a fortress full of angry aliens," Jake said, taking a bite of his meal. "Sounds like a typical Tuesday." "The mission seems straightforward," Lisa replied. "Get close, scan their defenses, transmit the data back to the fleet." Maya was not so sure. She had been studying the holographic displays of Fortress Arcturus, and something bothered her about the timeline. The hegemony was moving their forces into position unusually quickly. Military operations of this size normally took weeks to coordinate, but intelligence suggested they might attack Kepler 442b within days. "Have either of you worked with Zephyrian forces before?" Maya asked. Jake shook his head. "First time for me. I hear they're tough fighters, but they think very differently from humans." "Different how?" "They plan everything in advance," Lisa explained. "Very methodical, very organized. They do not like surprises or changes to their strategies." Maya made a mental note of this information. Understanding enemy psychology was often as important as knowing their weapon capabilities. The next few hours passed quickly as the team prepared their equipment and studied the mission briefings. The stealth shuttle was a sleek vessel designed to avoid detection by enemy sensors. It carried advanced scanning equipment but was lightly armed, built for reconnaissance rather than combat. As they prepared to depart, Commander Thorne pulled Maya aside. "Remember, Cadet, your job is to observe and report. If you encounter trouble, your orders are to withdraw immediately. The Coalition cannot afford to lose good officers on risky adventures." "Understood, sir." "I mean it, Maya. If the situation becomes dangerous, you have permission to surrender if necessary. Better to be captured alive than to take foolish risks that get your team killed." Maya felt uncomfortable with the idea of surrendering, but she nodded agreement. The mission was about gathering information, not fighting battles. As the shuttle launched from the Valiant, Maya watched the Coalition fleet grow smaller behind them. Soon they would be alone in enemy territory, with only their skills and equipment to keep them safe. She had no idea that within hours everything would go wrong, and she would face a choice between following orders and saving millions of lives. The stealth shuttle moved silently through space toward Fortress Arcturus. Maya sat in the pilot's seat, watching the massive enemy installation grow larger on her screen. Behind her, Jake checked his equipment while Lisa monitored enemy communications. "How long until we reach scanning range?" asked Specialist Korath, one of their alien team members. The Veltar's crystal body glowed softly in the shuttle's dim light. 20 minutes, Maya replied. "Remember, we stay at maximum distance and run passive scans only. We do not want them to detect us." Everything seemed to be going according to plan. The shuttle's stealth systems were working perfectly, and enemy sensors showed no sign of noticing their approach. Maya began to feel confident about their mission. That confidence disappeared when Jake suddenly looked up from his scanner. "Maya, we have a problem. I'm reading 3 hegemony patrol ships changing course toward us." "Impossible," Lisa said, checking her own instruments. "Our stealth systems are active. They should not be able to see us." Maya's hands moved quickly over the controls, trying to adjust their course away from the patrol ships. But it was too late. Red warning lights began flashing on the enemy vessels, and Maya knew they had been discovered. "All ships. This is hegemony. Patrol Leader Vexka," came a voice over the communication system. "Unknown vessel, you are ordered to stop and prepare for boarding. Any attempt to flee will result in your destruction." Jake was already strapping himself into his crash seat. "Maya, what are your orders?" Maya thought quickly. They could try to run, but the patrol ships were faster than their shuttle. They could try to fight, but their weapons were no match for 3 military vessels. Surrender seemed like the only option that would keep them alive. "We surrender," Maya said into the communication system. "Please do not fire. We are not armed for combat." "Smart choice, human," replied the hegemony patrol leader. "Follow our ships to the fortress. Any deviation from course will be considered hostile." As they flew toward Fortress Arcturus under escort, Maya felt frustrated and embarrassed. Their mission had failed before it really began, but as they got closer to the enemy base, she noticed something that made her forget about their capture. The fortress was much bigger than the intelligence reports had suggested. It was not just a military installation, but a massive command center, with hundreds of ships docked around it. More importantly, Maya could see construction work happening on several sections. This was not just a defensive position, but an active military headquarters. "Lisa, are you getting any communications from the fortress?" Maya asked quietly. "Yes, but I need time to decode their encryption," Lisa whispered back. "Give me a few minutes." Their shuttle was guided into a docking bay inside the fortress. Maya looked around at the bustling activity. Thousands of hegemony soldiers moved through the corridors, loading supplies and preparing equipment. This looked like preparation for a major military operation. Hegemony guards boarded their shuttle and ordered the team out. Maya and her crew were searched and had their weapons taken away. The guards were professional but not cruel, treating them like military prisoners rather than criminals. "You will be questioned by our intelligence officers," said the guard captain. "Cooperate and you will be treated well according to military law." They were taken to a holding area with basic furniture and a small bathroom. It was clean and secure, but obviously designed to keep prisoners from escaping. Maya sat down and tried to think about their situation. "Well, this mission went badly," Jake said, sitting on one of the bunks. "Commander Thorne is going to be very unhappy with us. We were detected by some kind of new sensor system," Specialist Korth observed. "Our intelligence about their capabilities was incorrect." Maya was only half listening to her team members. Something was bothering her about what she had seen in the docking bay. The level of activity in the fortress suggested major operations were planned, but the timeline did not match their intelligence reports. "Lisa, were you able to decode any of those communications?" Maya asked. Lisa looked around nervously, then moved closer to Maya. "Yes, and what I heard was very bad news. The hegemony is not planning to attack Kepler 442b in 3 days. They are planning to attack tomorrow." The room went silent. Maya felt her stomach drop as she realized what this meant. The coalition fleet was still 2 days away from being in position to defend the civilian world. Millions of innocent people were about to be attacked, and there was nothing they could do about it. "We have to warn the fleet," Jake said urgently. "How?" Maya replied. "We are prisoners. Our communication equipment was taken away. Even if we could send a message, the coalition ships are too far away to arrive in time." They sat in uncomfortable silence for several minutes. Maya stared at the walls of their prison cell and thought about the 3 million civilians on Kepler 442b. Families with children, elderly people, scientists and farmers who had never hurt anyone. In less than 24 hours, they would be under attack by one of the most brutal military forces in the galaxy. Lisa continued listening to enemy communications through a small device she had hidden in her boot. After an hour, she had more disturbing news. "Maya, I am picking up detailed coordination signals. Fortress Arcturus is not just a defensive installation. It is the central command center for the entire invasion of Kepler 442b. All attack orders are being coordinated from here." "What does that mean?" asked Specialist Korth. "It means if we could somehow disable this fortress, the entire invasion would fall apart," Maya explained. "But that is impossible. There are 50,000 enemy soldiers here, and we are 5, prisoners with no weapons." Jake looked at Maya with a strange expression. "You are thinking about something. I can see it in your eyes. What crazy idea is forming in that human brain of yours?" Maya was indeed thinking, but her thoughts were dangerous. She remembered something she had noticed in the holographic displays back on the Valiant. The fortress's power systems were centralized, running from a single massive reactor core. If that reactor were damaged or shut down, the entire installation would lose power, including shields, weapons, and communications. "No," she said, shaking her head. "It would be suicide. We have orders to surrender if captured." Commander Thorne was very clear about that. But even as she said it, Maya kept thinking about those 3 million civilians. She thought about families being separated, cities being destroyed, and innocent people dying while she sat safely in a prison cell. An hour later, A hegemony intelligence officer arrived to question them. He was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and cold black eyes. He spoke perfect English and seemed to know a lot about coalition military operations. "I am Commander Zektar," he said, sitting across from Maya. "You are the leader of this reconnaissance team, yes? Tell me about coalition, fleet positions and defensive capabilities. I am Cadet Maya Brooks, Coalition Defense Force, serial number 7749 Delta 6. That is all I am required to tell you under military law." Commander Zektar smiled coldly. "You humans are stubborn, but also practical. Let me make you an offer. Your war is already lost. Tomorrow we begin the conquest of Kepler 442b, and within a week we will control 3 more systems. Cooperate with us, and you and your team will be treated as honored prisoners until the war ends." Maya looked at her team members. Jake was staring at the floor, while Lisa and the alien specialists waited for her response. They all knew that cooperation might be their only chance of survival. "I need time to think about your offer," Maya said finally. "Of course, I will return tomorrow for your answer. But remember, Cadet Brooks, after tomorrow it will be too late to make a deal. The invasion will have begun, and my superiors will be less interested in prisoners who cannot provide useful information." After Commander Zektar left, Maya's team looked at her expectantly. They knew she was their leader, and whatever decision she made would affect all of their lives. Maya stared at the ceiling and thought about orders, duty, and the lives of 3 million innocent people. Tomorrow she would have to choose between following her orders to surrender and attempting something. That was probably impossible. The choice would define not just her military career, but the kind of person she wanted to be. Maya could not sleep that night. She lay on the narrow prison bunk and stared at the ceiling while her team members rested. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw images of families on Kepler 442b, waking up to find enemy ships in their sky. By morning, she had made her decision. "Jake, Lisa, wake up," she whispered. "We need to talk." Her team members gathered around her quietly. Even the alien specialists leaned in to listen. Maya spoke in a voice so low that the prison guards could not hear her. "I have been thinking all night about our situation. In a few hours, the invasion of Kepler 442b will begin. 3 million innocent people will be attacked, and there is nothing the coalition fleet can do to stop it." "Maya, we are prisoners," Jake pointed out. "There is nothing we can do either." "Maybe there is," Maya replied. "Lisa, you said this fortress is the central command center for the invasion. What would happen if the fortress lost power?" Lisa thought for a moment. Without power, they would lose communications with their attack fleets. The invasion would have to be delayed or called off entirely. And how does this fortress get its power? From a single large reactor core in the center of the installation, Specialist Korth answered. "But Maya, that reactor is heavily guarded. Even if we could escape from this cell, we could never reach it." Maya smiled for the first time since their capture. "We do not need to escape. We need to be invited deeper into the fortress." Jake looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "Think about it," Maya explained. "Right now we are in a holding cell near the docking bay. But what if we appeared to be valuable prisoners who needed special security? What if we seemed to know important coalition secrets that required interrogation by senior officers?" "You want us to pretend to cooperate with the enemy?" Lisa asked. "No, I want us to appear to be trying to escape while actually getting captured again in exactly the right place." Maya outlined her plan carefully. It was risky and depended on the enemy, reacting in predictable ways. But it was also simple enough that it might actually work. The first step began when Commander Zektar returned for Maya's answer about cooperation. "I have discussed your offer with my team," Maya told him. "We are willing to provide information about coalition fleet positions in exchange for good treatment." Commander Zektar looked pleased. "Excellent. You have made the smart choice, human. What can you tell me about your fleet's defensive capabilities?" Maya began giving him information that sounded important but was actually either outdated or slightly incorrect. She told him about weapon systems that had been upgraded months ago and ship positions that were no longer accurate. The information was good enough to seem valuable, but not good enough to actually help the enemy. "This is very useful, Commander," Zektar said after an hour of questioning. "My superiors will want to hear this information directly. You will be moved to a more secure location where senior intelligence officers can question you properly." Perfect, Maya thought. The first part of her plan was working. 2 hours later, guards arrived to move Maya's team to a new location deeper in the fortress. As they walked through the corridors, Maya paid careful attention to their route. She noticed security checkpoints, guard stations, and most importantly, signs pointing toward the reactor core section. Their new prison was more comfortable, but also more secure. It was located 3 levels down from their original cell and much closer to the fortress's vital systems. Maya could hear the humming of machinery through the walls. Phase 2, Maya whispered to her team that evening. Jake had managed to keep a small tool hidden in his boot that the guards had not found during their searches. It was not much, just a tiny electronic device used for equipment maintenance, but it was enough for what Maya needed. "Lisa, I need you to monitor guard rotations and communications. Jake, use that tool to create a small electrical short in the cell's power system. Make it look like an accident, but make sure it happens during the next guard change." "What will that accomplish?" asked Specialist Korath. "It will make them think we are trying to escape," Maya explained. "When they investigate, we will overpower one guard and take his weapon. Then we will run toward the reactor core section." "That sounds like a real escape attempt to me," Jake said nervously. "No, because we will let ourselves be recaptured before we actually reach the reactor. But not before we plant something important." Maya pulled a small device from her own boot. It was a standard Coalition communication transmitter, designed to look like medical equipment. The guards had not recognized it during their search. "This transmitter has a range of about 50 meters, Maya explained. "If I can plant it near the reactor core, I can use it to send false signals throughout the fortress's communication system." "What kind of signals?" Lisa asked. "Emergency alerts, security breaches, reports of Coalition forces attacking different sections of the fortress. I want to create confusion and make them think they are under attack from multiple directions." Jake was starting to understand. "You want to cause panic." "Exactly. If the fortress defenders think they are being attacked by a large Coalition force, they will abandon their normal post to respond to the threats. That will leave the reactor core with fewer guards." "And then what?" Specialist Korath asked. Maya took a deep breath. "Then we attempt something that is probably impossible. We try to shut down the reactor and prevent the invasion of Kepler 442b. Her team members stared at her in silence. They all knew that what she was proposing went far beyond their original mission. They had been ordered to gather intelligence and surrender if captured. What Maya wanted to do would either save millions of lives or get them all killed. "Maya," Jake said slowly, "this plan breaks every rule in the military handbook. If we survive this, you could face court-martial for disobeying direct orders." "I know," Maya replied. "But if we do nothing, 3 million innocent people will be attacked tomorrow. I cannot live with that." Lisa nodded first. "I am with you, Maya. The civilians on Kepler 442b did not choose to be part of this war." Jake sighed and checked his hidden tool. "Well, I have always wanted to blow something up inside an enemy fortress. Count me in." The alien specialists looked at each other, then at Maya. "We have fought alongside humans for 3 months, said Specialist Korath. "We have learned that humans sometimes attempt impossible things and succeed. We will follow your lead." Maya felt a mixture of fear and determination. In a few hours they would either be dead or they would have prevented one of the largest military disasters in Coalition history. "Remember," she told her team, "this only works if we stay calm and make the enemy react the way we predict." Human military tactics often depend on psychological warfare rather than superior firepower. We are going to use their own fears and confusion against them. As night fell over Fortress Arcturus, Maya's team prepared for what might be their last mission. Outside their cell, 50,000 enemy soldiers continued preparing for an invasion that Maya was determined to stop. The next few hours would determine whether a human cadet's crazy plan could save millions of lives, or whether it would simply Get her team killed for nothing. Maya closed her eyes and tried to rest, knowing that tomorrow would require every bit of courage and intelligence she possessed. Maya woke before dawn to the sound of Lisa working quietly at the cell door. Using Jake's small tool, Lisa had managed to create a minor electrical problem that would look like an escape attempt when the guards discovered it. "Everything ready?" Maya whispered. "The power short will activate in 10 minutes, Lisa replied. "I have been monitoring guard communications all night. They change shifts in 8 minutes. Jake checked the stolen hegemony uniform pieces they had collected from their laundry. It was not a complete disguise, but it might fool someone at a distance during the confusion they were about to create. Remember the plan," Maya said to her team. "We overpower one guard, take his weapon, and run toward the reactor section. But we let ourselves be recaptured before we actually reach it. I need to plant the transmitter during the chase." Specialist Korth looked nervous. "Maya, what if they shoot us instead of trying to capture us?" "They won't," Maya said with more confidence than she felt. "We are valuable prisoners with Coalition intelligence. They want us alive." The lights in their cell flickered and went out. Emergency lighting activated a moment later, casting red shadows on the walls. Almost immediately, they heard shouting in the corridor outside. "Now," Maya said. When the first guard entered their cell to investigate the power failure, Jake was waiting behind the door. The guard went down quickly and quietly. Maya grabbed his weapon while Lisa took his communication device. They ran through the corridor, following the signs toward the reactor core section. Behind them, alarms began sounding as more guards discovered their escape. Maya could hear boots running and voices shouting orders in the hegemony language. "There," Maya pointed to a maintenance panel near a corridor junction. While her team provided cover, she quickly attached the small transmitter to the panel's internal circuits. It was hidden but close enough to the fortress's main systems to work. "Guards coming from both directions," Jake warned. "Perfect," Maya replied. "Let them capture us." They put their hands up as hegemony soldiers surrounded them. The guards were angry and rough, but they did not shoot. Maya's prediction had been correct. The prisoners were too valuable to kill. "Stupid humans," growled the guard captain as they were marched back to their cell. "Did you think you could escape from Fortress Arcturus?" But Maya was not listening to the insults. She was counting steps and memorizing the route they had taken. More importantly, she was activating the transmitter using Lisa's stolen communication device. Back in their cell, Maya waited 30 minutes before beginning the real plan. Using the transmitter she had planted, she began sending false emergency signals throughout the fortress's communication system. "Security breach in Section 7, she transmitted, using codes Lisa had learned from monitoring enemy communications. "Coalition infiltrators detected near the main power grid." The response was immediate. Maya could hear boots running in the Buom corridors as guards rushed to investigate the reported breach in Section 7. 5 minutes later, she sent another signal. "Multiple explosions in Docking Bay 12. Enemy saboteurs confirmed. All units respond immediately." More guards ran past their cell. Maya smiled as she realized her plan was working better than expected. The fortress was so large and had so many defenders that the commanders could not keep track of where everyone was supposed to be. "Coalition strike team detected in officer quarters," Maya transmitted next, requesting immediate backup. "Heavy casualties reported." This message caused real panic. Maya could hear officers shouting orders and contradicting each other over the communication system. Some wanted to lock down the entire fortress, while others demanded that all available troops hunt for the infiltrators. "They are pulling defenders away from the reactor core," Lisa reported, monitoring the enemy communications. "I am hearing orders to reassign reactor guards to search for the Coalition strike teams." Maya waited another 10 minutes, then activated the final phase of her plan. Using the communication codes she had learned from Commander Zektar's questioning sessions, she began broadcasting surrender demands throughout the fortress. "This is Coalition command to all hegemony forces," she transmitted in her own voice, but using command authorization codes. "Your fortress is surrounded and your defenses have been breached. Surrender immediately, and you will be treated according to military law. The reaction was exactly what Maya had hoped for. Confusion spread through the fortress like wildfire. Guards abandoned their posts to look for enemies that did not exist. Officers argued about whether the surrender demands were real. The entire command structure began to break down. "Now we make our real escape," Maya told her team. This time their cell door was unguarded. The electrical short Jake had created earlier had damaged the locking mechanism, and the guards were too busy chasing imaginary coalition infiltrators to notice. Maya led her team through corridors that were now mostly empty. The few guards they encountered were easily avoided or distracted by more false radio reports of coalition forces in other sections of the fortress. When they reached the reactor core chamber, Maya was amazed to find only 6 guards instead of the usual 50. The rest had been sent to respond to her fake emergency calls. "Jake, can you shut down the reactor without destroying it?" Maya asked. "Give me 5 minutes," Jake replied, studying the control panels. "This is actually easier than I expected. The hegemony engineers built in lots of safety systems." While Jake worked, Maya continued broadcasting false reports and surrender demands. The confusion in the fortress was now complete. She could hear over the communication system that some hegemony units were actually beginning to surrender to guards from other sections, thinking they were coalition forces. "Reactor shutdown initiated," Jake announced. "It will take 6 hours to restart, and that is only if they can figure out what I did to the control systems." The lights in the fortress began to dim as backup power systems activated. Without the main reactor, the shields, weapons, and most importantly, the communications systems that controlled the invasion fleet would be offline. "Maya, I am receiving a transmission from the coalition fleet," Lisa said excitedly. "Commander Thorne is trying to contact us." Maya took the communication device. "This is Cadet Brooks. Do you copy?" "Maya, what is your status?" Came Commander Thorne's voice. "We are detecting massive power failures and communication disruptions from Fortress Arcturus. Sir, the Fortress reactor is offline and will remain so for at least 6 hours. The invasion of Kepler 442b cannot proceed without Central Command coordination." There was a long pause. "Cadet Brooks, please explain how 5 prisoners managed to disable an entire enemy fortress." Maya looked around at her team, who were grinning despite their exhaustion. "Sir, we used standard human military tactics. We created chaos, exploited enemy confusion, and turned their own systems against them." "Those were not your orders, Cadet." "No, sir, they were not. But following orders would have meant allowing 3 million civilians to be attacked. I chose to disobey orders in favor of saving lives." Another pause. "Maya, the coalition fleet will arrive at your position in 4 hours. Can you hold your current location?" Maya looked around the reactor chamber. Through the chaos she had created, hegemony forces throughout the fortress were surrendering to each other, convinced that a massive coalition invasion was underway. The real invasion fleet heading toward Kepler 442b had lost contact with their command center and was falling back to defensive positions. "Yes, sir, I believe we can hold this position. The enemy seems to be confused about the current situation." When the coalition fleet arrived, they found Fortress Arcturus in complete surrender. Maya's psychological warfare had been so effective that most of the 50,000 defenders had given up without firing a shot, believing they were facing an overwhelming enemy force. Vice Admiral Zenthar found Maya in the Fortress Command Center, calmly coordinating the surrender of enemy officers while eating a ration pack from her emergency supplies. "Cadet Brooks," the Vice Admiral said slowly, "you were ordered to gather intelligence and surrender if captured. Instead, you have captured an entire enemy fortress with a team of 5 people. How do you explain this?" Maya stood and saluted. "Sir, sometimes the impossible is just another word for creative problem solving. The enemy expected us to follow standard military procedures. When we did something completely different, they could not adapt quickly enough to stop us." 3. Weeks later, Maya stood before a coalition military tribunal. The charges against her were serious: disobeying direct orders, engaging in unauthorized combat operations, and risking the lives of her team members. But the results spoke for themselves. The capture of Fortress Arcturus had prevented the invasion of Kepler 442b and led to the surrender of 3 entire hegemony battle fleets. Maya's tactics were already being studied at military academies throughout Coalition space. Lieutenant Maya Brooks, announced the tribunal president, "You are found guilty of disobeying orders. You are also awarded the Coalition Star for extraordinary heroism and promoted to the rank of lieutenant." Maya smiled as she accepted her new rank insignia. Sometimes being human meant taking risks that others would not take, and sometimes those risks saved millions of lives. In her new assignment training mixed species military units, Maya would teach other officers that the word impossible often just meant no one has tried the right approach yet.